Every day is so different from the next. Every day is an adventure. I start the day and I'm like, I have no idea where the day is going to take me. I love that I get to see new places and meet new people, and every day is different. But on a contemporary show, I think it'd be a really interesting conversation to be like, okay, how can we reduce our footprint?
Meredith Markworth-Pollack is a very trendy costume designer who's worked on quite different but definitely all interesting projects, such as Dynasty, Reign, and American Crime Story. Meredith, I'm really excited to have you as my guest on Profession Costumière today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'd like to start with some questions about your early career and ask you how you became a costume designer. What led you to this profession?
Well, I studied film in college, film studies, which was really kind of film theory. So a lot of writing papers and analyzing films. And, I'd always had an interest in fashion, but I never made the connection about costume design or the importance or the theme of costume design through film. And one of my assignments in college was to write a paper. I chose the movie Nashville, and it just really opened my eyes. I remember thinking, like, I couldn't believe that someone dressed every single person that we saw. And when I really started thinking about that and what that entailed, I was like, oh, maybe that's something I should go into. And when I finished school in Santa Barbara, I moved to New York and started an internship at a production company called Killer Films, which still exists. It at the time was an independent production company. And they had a film they were about to make called The Notorious Betty Page, about the pinup star. So I kind of finagled my way in as an intern. And then as soon as I started on that, I was like, oh, this is it. I found my calling. I love it. I loved it was so hard for me. I mean, I just look back on the hours and the tasks at hand that were so mundane in so many ways, but I found them so exciting, like putting, covers on hangers for 8 hours a day. Like, that was thrilling to me at the time. So from there, I knew that that's the career I wanted to pursue. And I just, I put in the time and I worked my way up from there.
Great. And I was actually curious about two of your first jobs as in costume industry. You were a costume staff assistant on the set of The Departed by Martin Scorcese in 2006. And the following year, you were assistant costume designer on Gossip Girl. So I was wondering if you could share how you got involved in those two iconic projects and what you also learned from those experiences.
Absolutely. So what we call in the States a PA. I know sometimes in Europe they call it like a trainee. I'm not exactly sure of the title in France, but it's basically a production assistant. So that's what I was on The Departed. I graduated from intern, then I started getting paid. It's still no money, but I was loving it. So the assistant designer from Notorious Betty Page, she was assisting Sandy Powell on The Departed and asked me to be a PA. I always joke that my one opportunity to work with Sandy Powell, it was a cop show, So, but nonetheless, I did absorb some of her wisdom, but that was a wild show. It felt like it went on forever and ever, that movie. And again, from a costume standpoint, it wasn't the most thrilling. It was a bunch of, undercover cops in Boston. So, but the cast obviously was really fun. And just being on a project of that scale and going to set, there's Martin Scorcese. Like, that was, for me, it was such a, like a you've made it kid experience for me. I was like, I can't believe this, even though I was just a PA and I really had very little actual interactions with these people. It was still a really incredible experience. And then I was introduced from a friend, Christopher Peterson, who's actually a incredible costume designer. And he was also working on The Departed, and he recommended me to assist Eric Damon. And Eric, at the time, who's the designer of Gossip Girl, he had a small little indie film called Tenderness, and Eric hired me for that as his assistant. And then right after that, he got Gossip Girl. So I did the pilot with Eric as his assistant on Gossip Girl, and I did the first season of Gossip Girl as his assistant. And that really, was a pivotal moment for me, because it really kind of catapulted my career after that as a designer. And it was actually the producers of Gossip Girl that then hired me as a designer on my first show, Heart of Dixie. So I am just forever grateful for Eric, for Stephanie Savage, for Josh Schwartz, who were the producers of Gossip Girl. They recognized that I had a talent and that I was capable, and gave me an opportunity that a lot of people, work years and years and years for, to finally get their own show. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And of course, working on Gossip Girl, especially the pilot in the first season, where we really created the look of the whole show, and working under Eric Damon, I learned so much. I think he's the king of accessorizing. And so I learned that skill from him, and just, ultimately how to blend the lines of fashion and costume and incorporate trends, but also having it feel timeless in a lot of ways. So I really definitely valued that project and my time with Eric.
Yeah, I guess it opened a lot of doors for you. As you said, it was really a pivotal moment for you.
It did. And it's so funny now looking back that they've rebooted it. It's the Gossip Girl has this resurgence, and I get people all the time calling on Instagram, everyone, it all comes back to Gossip Girl, which is so funny. But yeah, it was quite a significant show for a lot of people.
Definitely. And the costumes are really iconic.
Yes.
And then a few years later, you were the costume designer of a TV show, Rain. It's a TV series about Mary Stuart. It's set in the 16th century. And you've created costumes for this show between 2013 and 17. So it's 78 episodes in total. It's quite impressive. And I was wondering how you handled this very ambitious project in a completely different time.
Well, first of all, the fact that you even noted that it was 78 episodes, thank you for that, because that's something that I think goes unnoticed a lot. And, when you think about these big epic period shows, even like a Bridgerton, it's 10 episodes a season, right? And on Rain, we did 22 episodes a season. And it's just wild looking back on that. I can't believe we did that. I can't believe we did 78 episodes in 4 years. Obviously, when you're shooting that much, you could argue that the production value compared to the Game of Thrones, the Bridgertons, also, it wasn't a huge Netflix, $100 million show. So the budget wasn't quite as big as those, but I do really think that given them the volume of what we did, a really incredible job on that. Rain was such an adventure. I look back so fondly on Rain. It's my costume baby. And it was such a wild ride. I got a call to do the pilot 2 weeks before they were going to camera in Ireland. And I was in Los Angeles at the time. I literally hopped on a plane less than 24 hours, took my assistant. I was still finishing up Heart of Dixie, had my assistant there take over, took a second assistant with me. We filled up some suitcases with jewelry and belts, and because I honestly didn't know what to bring out there, never working in the UK before, not knowing what, obviously that's where all the 16th century costumes are, is in Europe. But because the producers wanted to kind of blend the lines of fantasy into proper period accuracy, though, it was kind of up to me to define what that look was. So I knew I needed contemporary elements to bring to the table there. So we filled up these 2 suitcases, we hopped on a plane, and then we had 2 weeks of prep in Ireland before we started shooting. And it was just wild, but we made it through the pilot. And then the producers came back and asked me to do the show shooting, which would be shooting in Toronto. So I agreed, moved up to Toronto, and just kind of rolled up my sleeves and dug in. And, I think rain, people love it or hate it. Even the costumes, I think there's a lot of people reaching out to me in the beginning and being like, this isn't correct. They would never wear that, I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. The music is contemporary. The language feels very modern. The hair, the costumes, and everything. So I always kind of encourage people to approach it almost more of fantasy in a way, because ultimately we were taking a story but using creative liberties to enhance it how we saw fit. So once people kind of accepted that, I think, and got over the fact that it wasn't the Mary Stuart, that they were used to, they were able to enjoy it for sure. And I think even after the show, and this is, the show ended in, I think we finished shooting in 2016, it aired in 2017, so 5-6 years later, people are still messaging me saying they just discovered it and they love it and they love the costumes and it was so unique. And it's really nice to hear that, because I was really proud of that work, and it was such a huge group effort. We had such a incredible team in Toronto, and we all pretty much stayed on it the whole time for 4 years working on the show together. So it was really like a family. I grew so much as a designer on that show. I built these relationships that I'll have forever. So that's when I say it's my baby, it's like, I look back on that show with such happiness and warmth. The cast, we became so close, the cast and crew. I'm still really close with a lot of them. So, that show, and we all were shooting that show and would say to each other, I don't think it's ever going to get as good as this, because it was filled with love. We were happy. We were in such a creative place. And I think everyone felt like seen on that show and heard. And it was such a nice place to be at, while making a show. It was such a collaborative effort.
Yeah. It seems like a wonderful experience.
Yes.
I was quite curious, actually, because you mentioned that you brought some contemporary elements also to the costumes of this show. Did you also rent like some pieces? Did you have some pieces created? Was it like a mixture of everything? How did it work?
Yeah, it was definitely a mixture, although the first season was mostly rentals, because when we had maybe 8 weeks to prep the first season. And so when we first started, the first thing I said was, where are we going to get all this stock? Because that era does not exist in North America. For obvious reasons. So it exists in Europe, and I can't think of another show, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but there could be, but I can't think of one off the top of my head that took place in 16th century Europe, but was shot in North America. So that was really tricky. So I went with my assistant to Europe. We went to Italy, mostly just Italy and the UK, Torelli, Angels, the costumes.her, like the big costume houses. I know there was one in Spain. We never made it there, but I think they sent us rentals. So we went and we just pulled. And then in Toronto, there are a couple costume houses. Again, you're not really what you do find is like kind of cheesy Shakespearean costumes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, they have in Ontario, they do have I'm totally forgetting the name of this cute town. They're gonna kill me there. That does a basically like all the Shakespearean plays. People from all over the world come there. What is it? It's actually where Justin Bieber is from. Randomly, I'm totally forgetting the name. I'll have to look it up for you.
I'll check it out. I don't know it, but
they're two. Yes, they're two claims to fame: Justin Bieber and the Shakespeare Festival. So we would go there and rent costumes, but there just wasn't a lot of options there. So we set up a shop and we utilized a lot of the costume makers in Toronto, and we would make outfits for our principals, but all the background and day players were all rentals. So it was really interesting at the end of the first season when they knew we were coming back for a second season, the producers came and said, this is crazy. When you look at how much money we have spent on these European rentals, we can't afford to keep doing this. Also, the whole point about you shoot in Canada is that you get tax breaks when you rent and make the costumes there. So they were like, how do we do this? How do we not use all these rentals and make the show work? And I said, the only option is to build everything. Yeah. So in between seasons 1 and 2, we kept a whole team on, and we outsourced every costume maker, stitcher we could find in Toronto. And we built, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces. So by the time we started season 2, we came back with our own stock. We returned all the rentals. We kept some of the really special pieces, but for the most part, we turned the rentals to Europe, and then we just started making everything. So we took the budget that we would be spending on the rentals, and we had everything made, and it really changed the whole look of the show. It's amazing. And if you watch the show, you can really see the first season, from the first season to the second, third, and even fourth. I feel like the look of the show just keeps evolving and growing. And we really found our own voice because we were able to make everything instead of having to rent. So that's something, it's kind of a nice little backstory. And I think the real diehard viewers may notice that, how the costumes kind of evolved with us as we were evolving too, and learning how to pull off a show of that caliber in Canada, which again was kind of unheard of.
And in terms of freedom for you, I guess it was wonderful because you could create maybe not everything you wanted, but compared to rentals, you had more freedom, I guess, to choose some fabrics, some colors, some shapes.
Absolutely. That's what really I love the most, is it really opened the doors for the creativity. And I found, I don't recall how, if I found her, she found me, but this woman who's a fabric agent in Toronto, and she had ties to all the fabric mills and shops and wholesale places throughout Europe and New York. And so she would just come in with these incredible swatches, from Italy, from everywhere. And I would just say yay or nay, and then we just started getting in massive amounts of really interesting, beautiful fabrics for these gowns. And we just started pumping them out, and we were able to build for all the background too. And so it just really tonally changed the whole look of the show for the better, of course. And now all these costumes are sitting in a costume house in Toronto, and every now and then I'll have a friend that goes there for a particular project that needs them, and they'll send me pics, and it makes me so happy to see them live on,
Really nice. And moving on to another show, Dynasty. So you're the creator of Dynasty's 3 first seasons, amazing costumes that I personally really love. And I was wondering how you got on board of this project.
Yeah, so Dynasty was so fun. That was, kind of a dream project. When I first heard that they were doing it, and they being, again, Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage, who I've already mentioned. They did Gossip Girl, they did Heart of Dixie, they did The Runaways, which is a Marvel pilot that I did for them. So actually they did the Runaways pilot and the Dynasty pilot back to back. And I was originally hired to do the Runaways pilot, and they had Dynasty coming up. And I remember I was like, I need to do Dynasty too. And they were like, I don't know if the timing's going to work. I'm like, I need to do Dynasty too. It's kind of like 2 for 1, and you have to make it work for me. And they're like, okay. So I literally, I think was, we were finishing shooting the Runaways pilot, and I started prepping Dynasty, and then went to Atlanta to go shoot that. We shot the pilot. It was so much fun. I loved the cast. I loved the fashion, of course. And then when the series got ordered, I decided to take it and to move my family to Atlanta, which was really fun. So again, just a testament to how loyal these producers are. And they kept, hiring me, which was so nice. But, Dynasty was, I think that the most important thing was in the beginning was paying homage to the original, but also creating a new look for our version. And then as the show started airing and we really got to know who the fans were more and more, it became clear that the people watching the show were not the same people who even the people watching the show didn't even know what the original Dynasty was. So we kind of more and more were able to create our own style and looks and not necessarily hold on to the 80s, to the past of the 80s. I love the 80s and wanted to incorporate it as much as possible. But it really was clear that it was its own thing and didn't necessarily need to be connected to the original. So yeah, we got started in Atlanta. We were called in and got clothes sent kind of literally from all over the world, and shopped in Atlanta a bit. Shopping in Atlanta is not amazing. It's okay, but it's not incredible. But we would go to LA and do big shopping sprees, do a lot online. And it was really just a matter of volume. Again, we shoot 22 episodes a season. So it's like, it's so fast. Everyone has 5 or 6 outfits an episode. And so it's just, you cannot stop getting pieces in. It was constant shopping. I've never shopped so much as I have on that show. I would, work all day, shop all day, come home, put the kids to bed, pour myself a glass of wine, get back on the computer to keep shopping. And it's fun. I loved it, but it was definitely, it's a lot. It required a lot of pieces.
Very time consuming, but the result is amazing.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. And I think really, Liz Gillies, who plays Fallon, it was so fun working with her and watching the two of us really create Fallon's style. And I think so many women really love it. She's very versatile. One day she's in a purple silk suit, satin suit, and the next day she's in, a floral dress, and just kind of showing really just having fun with it. I think that's what it was. It's just really kind of having fun with dressing up for work, for parties, for home, and being a little bit over the top with it and having fun. And it's just eye candy, it's what people love seeing. But the best part was, we got to shoot, not the best part, but a very significant and amazing part of the show was we got to shoot an episode in Paris, and to go see how the show is received in Europe was really amazing, because the show's done okay in the States. It didn't, blow anything out of the water. And obviously it didn't do so poorly enough that it got canceled. They're on season 4. I think they've even been renewed for a season 5. So, but to go to Europe and all of a sudden, we would walk out of a hotel or Liz's trailer and there was just, hundreds of people there wanting to see. That was really incredible, because I think it opened our eyes for myself, cast, producers, of like, oh wow, the show, it like people really respond to it and people really love it all over the world. And maybe we don't get that response when we're shooting on location in Atlanta, but now we're in Paris and people are freaking out, and so we had so much fun there of like, oh wow, like people, I remember going shopping one day with Liz, and it started getting a little hectic where people were following us and, coming up to Liz, and she was like, I kind of think I got to go home, back to the hotel, because it was getting, whereas the whole cast in Atlanta can go to dinner, can go, and people are just don't know them as well, I guess. So it was a really fun experience. Plus just being able to shoot in Paris, work with a Parisian crew. We did a whole kind of tie-in segment with Stefan Roland, and his pieces are just so exquisite, and he was on the show, and we shot, in what felt like a castle to us. I'm sure it wasn't, but like it was a very incredible experience.
And you were mentioning Fallon's character, and I was actually wondering if you had maybe one or several favorite characters to dress for this show.
Oh, it's so hard. For sure, Jeff Colby, who Sam Adegoke is the actor who plays him, and it was really a beautiful collaboration with Sam. Sam is from Nigeria, and the character Jeff Colby is half Nigerian, and so Sam came to the table and was like, we need to be using, if not specifically Nigerian designers, African designers. Like, let's do this. Let's push the boundaries with him. It doesn't always need to be a Gucci suit. Like, let's give people an opportunity who don't normally get these opportunities to have their clothes on TV. And we did. And the response of that was just overwhelming. And people were so thrilled when we would use their pieces and then get to use those photos to share, on social media and help develop their brands. And it was just remarkable. And I there's definitely other costume designers who have done that for sure on TV, but this felt really special in a lot of ways. And I love the Jeff Colby style. And Sam, he has so much personality, and he loves fashion so much, and he just like would come in for his fittings like dancing away and ready to go. So I really loved that. I love Sammy Joe. Raphael is just amazing, an amazing human being, and he also brought so much to the table. And we would like do leather and leopard and sequin pants, and he'd be like feeling it and love it. So he was really fun. Obviously dressing Nat Kelly season 1 as Crystal Carrington. I love that. I loved really coming up with the look of, Fallon versus Crystal, and Crystal was these soft tones and these luxurious fabrics, a lot of silk and cashmere and muted colors and seafoam green and blush, and then Fallon would come in these sharp angles, and it was very geometrical and very architectural, and she would have these gem tones and these loud colors and loud bold prints. And so we really wanted to set up these two worlds of these two women. And of course, Blake Carrington, Grant Show, like his beautiful suits and impeccable tailoring. And, honestly, every single person, Wakima, who plays Monica, that woman can wear anything and make it look incredible. It was so fun dressing her. Dominique, like every single character was like a Blake canvas to just do a crazy fashion scene on. So it was beautiful, and it was really actually hard to walk away from that show. But I felt at the end of the 3rd season, again shooting 22 an episode, I was like, I just have to challenge myself in a new way. But it was like leaving a family, but it was so nice because I had my assistant, Erin Burke. I really pushed for her to take over and for her to be given that opportunity to be a designer, and the producers all agreed and they hired her. So it's great because it stayed in the family.
Yes,
It's like,
completely.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning Nat Kelly, who plays Crystal in 1st season. And I actually saw on Instagram that you seem to have become close friends and that you joined her on a personal level on a no new clothes challenge for 3 months. And on Instagram, to quote you, you said that I definitely want to discuss what we can do as costume designer and stylists to be more conscious and change our ways of working. So could you share some thoughts you're having on this matter? I actually subscribed to the talk you were having on Zoom, but unfortunately in Paris, it was at 2 a.m. and I fell asleep before it started. So I would be curious to hear your thoughts about the subject.
Wow. I mean, that's so amazing that you even attempted that. I go to bed at 10 p.m. every night, so there's no way I could have made it. Well, yeah. So Natalie and I I think everyone that meets Natalie falls in love with her. She's a very magnetic woman. She's very special. She's incredibly smart. And I told her in this talk that she was my spirit animal. She's a very spiritual, empathetic woman. And her and I connected on many levels. And we both love fashion. We love clothing. We love shopping. We love sharing ideas with each other. And it was so much fun to dress her on Dynasty. And then after she left and kind of started doing some different projects, and after I kind of stepped away from Dynasty myself, I really saw how she was using her voice to speak up for others who didn't have a voice. She's very involved in protecting indigenous tribes, indigenous land. She is really, really an advocate on beyond even sustainable, regenerative fashion, and the effects of the fashion industry has on not only on the environment, but on the women, mostly women, who are in the factories making these pieces. So the more I started listening to her and speaking with her, the more passionate I also became. And I had an opportunity to do a little bit of research on sustainable fashion over quarantine. I thought I would be helping out a friend with a new sustainable company. So I started doing all this research on it. And it was really eye-opening. And I reached out to Natalie and, asked her if she could be involved with this project in some capacity, which she is now. She is the spokesperson for this new makeup and beauty brand called Wild Elements, which is really amazing because it's giving her a platform to continue to use her voice. And anyway, so Natalie, I knew she was doing this No New Clothes Challenge. I was so impressed because when I first met Natalie on Dynasty, and she, would go on these shopping trips to New York and come back with tons of new outfits. We would both, show each other our new pieces that we bought online. And it was just very much when you're working on a show like that, like Dynasty, and it's all about fashion and consumption and never repeating an outfit and the richest families in America. It's hard not to let that get into your everyday life. And her and I both, and we're both the first to admit that we were, consumed by this, right? So then when I saw that she hadn't bought new clothes for a year, I was like, Natalie, like Nat Kelly, and I just kept thinking, okay, if she can do this, I can do this. And I really want to challenge myself to see if I can. So my first, when I committed to doing this I'm doing 90 days. It'll probably be a year, but I know I can commit to 90 days. And I posted this online. The response from my peers, other costume designers, were like, wow, are you like for a show or for your life? And I was like, oh, this is personal. There's no way I could do this on a show. And then I started thinking, or could you know what I mean? And it kind of opens up another conversation of how could we be more thoughtful in our process on shows? The era of the show, of course, the type of show has such a impact on what you can and cannot do. For example, right now I'm doing it's a period show, but it's in the 90s, but still considered a period show. So yes, I'm not running to the mall and buying, hundreds of contemporary pieces. On occasion we do, because there's definitely contemporary pieces that can pass as 90s, but for the most part, it's all vintage. It's costume houses here in LA. It's Etsy, it's eBay. It's it's builds. So it's not really something that is a huge issue on the show. But on a contemporary show, I think it'd be a really interesting conversation to be like, okay, how can we reduce our footprint and use vintage pieces, use thrifting pieces, use more pieces from the costume houses instead of only using new off the rack pieces, and especially not repeating outfits. And that's a big thing in contemporary television shows, is we want to give the audience, the producers always say, we want to give them eye candy. We want to give them things that they can aspiration. So we don't repeat outfits, but I think that's very, very unrealistic and actually detrimental to the mental health, to, social, there's social consequences when you do that, because how many people do you know wear a new outfit every day? No. This dress I'm wearing is like my new favorite dress, and I've worn it 18 times probably in the past 2 months. So it's really it's kind of a dangerous thing to portray. And we realize the role that we have in this in the media of showing, especially specifically young women, oh, you need a new outfit, you need to impress your friends, you need to do this, instead of saying, hey, why not look into your closet at the old pieces that you never wear? Think about new ways to style them. And instead of constantly needing new pieces, or going to the consignment store, or thrifting, or buying at the Real. I know in Paris there's amazing secondhand places. There's amazing markets, same in the States. So, and it's nothing new. I mean, people have been loving vintage for years. That part of it is nothing new. But I think that the new part of it is that comes from the mentality, the space that we approach this in, of like, we don't all need new clothes. It's so harmful for the environment. These clothes that don't break down and then they burn them in landfills. It's so harmful. How can we all play our own little parts and make small changes that add up to help the environment and also help the working conditions? I think people don't realize, the working conditions when you're buying the fast fashion of who's making, the idea of like who is making your piece of clothing. That's an idea that a lot of people never think about, And in this talk that I had with Natalie the other day, I was saying that, I eat super clean, organic as much as possible. I've changed all of my makeup and my face products to clean products, but I didn't think about my clothes until recently, and it's just as important. So anyway, that's what Natalie convinced me to do for the next 90 days. But I think it's really going to evolve into bigger conversations than that.
It's very interesting. Good luck for the 90 days. And it's very interesting because, as you said, I think that TV shows are so influential, and especially for young people. And I grew up, everybody grew up with shows with beautiful characters that change like 3 times a day. And of course, it stays in your mind, and it's like some kind of inspiration. So it's very interesting that you're rethinking this. Looking forward to seeing how it evolves.
Yes, me too.
And I had a few questions about American Crime Story, because I saw that you're the costume designer of season 3, which is about Bill Clinton's sex scandal and impeachment. So could you share how you were hired to join the team for this season?
Yes, and I will share as much as I am allowed to with you, but we are still shooting. So
yes, of course,
definitely some things I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but I can definitely tell you how I got involved. So I was hired by Lou Eyrich, who I'm sure you've heard of. Lou Eyrich is a incredible costume designer, award-winning costume designer, who has worked with Ryan Murphy, I think, for over 20 years now. And at some point, I think it was about maybe 6 years ago or so, Ryan had so many shows happening, he couldn't have Lou do all of them. So he had Lou become a producer and hire costume designers for all of the shows. So it's really an amazing position. I'm so just in awe of her and the work that she does. She oversees all of his shows as a costume producer, as a producer ultimately, but she oversees the costume departments of all the shows and hires the costume designers and kind of, is someone to lean on when you have questions or needs some advice, or how are we going to approach this character? Or Ryan, is giving her ideas, and then she's coming to each show and explaining them. She also kind of serves as the liaison between Ryan and all of the shows. So it's really a remarkable thing. I've never seen a producer like that. And it's needed. It's definitely on his shows, which are all big, mostly high fashion shows. So Lou and I have been friends for a while. We had done many panels together over the years. And when I left Dynasty and came back to Los Angeles, I was having lunch with her one day and kind of explaining how I had made this shift in my career, that I had done all these amazing shows, but they all kind of centered, were young adult and teen centric, and how I wanted to make a shift because I found myself getting pigeonholed into only being offered those types of shows. So it was kind of an interesting position for me to be in a way, because I felt like I was starting over a bit. And so we just had lunch, and I just mentioned that to her, and she called me, I don't know, a month or two later and said, I have this project and I can't tell you anything about it, and can you do it? Basically. And I was
very mysterious.
Yeah, so mysterious. I think I had to agree to do it before I even knew what it was. She just told me it's 90s. It's 90s. And I was like, okay. Of course, Googling like Ryan Murphy, 90, I had no idea what it was. I finally get the scripts and I was like, oh, okay. Now this is interesting. This is different for me. So it's been incredible, because it's definitely brought me outside of my CW comfort box, and challenged me in so many ways. But yeah, it's a really incredible show. It's going to be amazing. There's no doubt about that.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I was just wondering if it's not too indiscreet at that stage of the show, but since it's about historical characters and like a real story, I was curious about how much you used like archives and like old pictures and videos, and also how much freedom you allowed yourself to create the costumes.
We are pretty authentically replicating all the historical images. So that's been a new thing for me too. I had never worked on a show that was based on, well, that's not true. I was going to say I never worked on a show that was based on real people. Obviously Mary Queen of Scots. But
yes, but as you said, it was like there was a lot of freedom about this time.
Exactly. And also there's not a lot of documentation, right? There's a couple paintings,
not much pictures and videos.
Not many pictures. So here we have which, to be clear, I can say it's about the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, Linda Tripp scandal. So there's a lot of documentation. So I can say we've taken that documentation very seriously, and we are replicating everything as close as possible. Yeah, which has been really fun. It's like it's brought out the detective in me, which I love. So it's like the women in the office and myself, the detective work that we have done, the research. I mean, down to like tiny prints of ties for certain people. It's just like, it's so fun. That part of it, I'm like, would love to just secretly be a private investigator, I think. So I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it must be very exciting to recreate from the archives you have, and yes, try to find the right print, the right fabric, and yeah, very exciting. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing
I think
it.
there's always artistic liberties you take in film and TV. And of course, there's so many factors that play a role, the actors' body types, actors, the look, the whole look that's being achieved with wigs and makeup and everything. So there are certain moments where you try to be as authentic as possible, but there's a million reasons where you may have to slightly, adjust something. So.
Of course. And I was interviewing Bina Daigalar, who's done Miss America. And she was also telling me that, of course, there's like the documented part and the public part of those very famous people like Gloria Steinem. But then there's also the part where they just go back home and they are in their pajamas, and that's not documented. So that's also what you create as a costume designer, the intimate clothes also.
Absolutely. And that's perhaps sometimes the hardest part is like the casual, the pajamas at home. I find, because then it's like, okay, what would she wear? You know, is she a silk pajamas kind of a person? Is she a t-shirt and flannel pajamas? Is she a robe? Is she a caftan? You know, it's really interesting because I think in a way, though, it's more challenging when you don't have this photo of a certain, when you have the photo, it's like, we're just going to make that exactly. But when it's not documented, it opens up all the possibilities, it's all on you. Right? Yep.
And I had a few questions to conclude, more general about costumes. The first one would be, I was curious to know if there's any favorite costumes you have, maybe for films or TV shows, costumes that you really love and still inspire you.
Well, I have to say, I would have a lot. If you asked me a month ago, I'd have a lot of different answers. But obviously, what has happened in the past month with Cruella has just blown everything else out of the water. I am so in awe of that film. I've watched it 3 times with my daughter. My daughter is so inspired. She's been sketching. She asked for a dress form for her birthday. She's 6. She wants a dress form for her birthday in a week because she wants to start draping. So that has been so incredible to see, not only to see the just genius of Jenny Beavan doing the costumes on the film, but also to see the effect it's had on so many people and so many people who have been inspired by it. And every time I've watched that film, like I said, 3 times, I find new things, new costumes that I didn't notice before. And like every little detail is so perfect and spot on. I am just completely blown away by that. I can't even imagine what it was like creating all of those and the team that she had. So that's definitely been the one. Have you seen it?
No, not yet. It's not out in France yet. It's I think it's next week. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I really actually followed because it also raised a whole discussion about costume designers and all the, you know, the clothes that were made inspired by the costumes, but where Jenny Beavan was never quoted. And so I quite followed the discussion about the costumes. And I'm really excited to see the film. I think it's next week that it will be out in France.
Oh, good. Well, after you watch it, let me know what you thought. Because
completely.
Every conversation I've had with friends is everyone just like, oh my God, and did you see this one and this one, you know? And and it also, it's brought up, it's really brought front and center to the table the discussion of costume designers being involved in the collaborations that are not even collaborations, just full lines that happen that the studios procure after a film based on their designs. You know, there's the Rag and Bone Cruella collection that Jenny was completely left out of. And also just Disney themselves. Like if you look on the Disney website, they have the Cruella's jacket and, you know, it's a very complicated and complex conversation because the studios, I don't think, see why they need to be including costume designers. And of course, us as costume designers see our designs being profited on by the studios, and that's unfair as well. So hopefully it can be sorted, because I think it's just going to continue to happen. So it's a very fascinating conversation, and I'm really glad it's happening. But just the support that Jenny's received from all of the from the Costume Designers Guild and just costume designers everywhere being like, this is wrong. And she was kind of the epitome of it, because it's literally a movie about fashion designers and fashion, and then to not include the costume designer in the fashion lines that come from the movie about fashion, it's backwards, you know. So hopefully this one's going to get everyone's attention on that subject.
I really hope so too. Any other costumes you'd like to quote? Any other costume you really like?
You know, this one was one that maybe went a little bit more under the radar, but it actually was the first time I really noticed the work of Sandy Powell, and that was Velvet Goldmine. It was my favorite film when I was in my late 20s, late 20s. I can't remember what year it came out. Maybe it came out 99 to early 2000s. And I was just enamored by it. I love the 70s like glam rock, you know, whole scene. And I was so in awe of what she did on that movie. So that really struck me as one, because I think it was kind of a pivotal moment when I was really deciding I wanted to be a costume designer. And then I saw that film and I had kind of a bit more of an understanding of what the role of a costume designer was and what the crew was and what it took to make a film. And I was just like, wow, that is spectacular. But it's interesting because it's not one of those films that you're like, oh, you know, you look back, but yes, the costumes were every little piece was done so perfectly. So yeah, I think that's definitely one that sticks out in my mind as well.
And is there any costumes you made that you are especially proud of, that you especially like seeing again?
Yes, almost anything from Rain, especially in the last couple seasons. I think one of the pieces I'm most proud of was Mary's last wedding dress. It was a gold. She got married so many times, or there were like so many weddings, and like I think I counted. I want to say it was like 18 wedding gowns I did over the seasons in Rain. Maybe it was even more. I don't remember. But I always wanted to do something different from the last. There was a red wedding gown. There was Princess Claude got married in a blue floral wedding gown. So for Mary's last one, it was gold lace, and it had a gold lace veil with a train, and we kind of had this headpiece made that kind of came along the sides here, and it was so beautiful. And I was so proud of the work that the shop did making it, and it just looked amazing on camera. And I think that's probably one of the pieces I'm most proud of.
I'll share pictures of it on Instagram so that people who listen can see it. Yes.
Thank you. I love that one.
And what do you like most about your job?
You know, it's so funny that you asked that. I was driving to set today and thinking, thank God I like spontaneity and change, because if you are someone that doesn't like that, let me tell you, this is not the right business. I mean, every day is so different from the next. Every day is an adventure. I start the day and I'm like, I have no idea where the day is going to take me. I kind of have an idea where I'm going every day, like literally where I'm going, but like, who knows, you know? And so I was driving to this location today, and it was really beautiful this morning. And I just was thinking, I love this. I love that I get to see new places and meet new people, and every day is different. So that's definitely my favorite part about this job.
And my last question would be, is there any specific type of projects you'd really like to work on? And if so, why?
I mean, I love using the side of my brain to build costumes, and I miss the Rain days where we made everything. And so I would love to have another opportunity to be on a show like that where you make every single piece. I think kind of fantasy is a genre that I'm curious about that I haven't really gotten into. There's also so many other periods that, I mean, there's so many nuances, not only in each period, but like in each location of each period, and in each from one year to the next. So I think those are two things that I would really enjoy experimenting a bit more with.
Great. Well, I've asked you all my questions, Meredith. Thank you so much for your time. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add or if you're good.
No, I think you had such incredible questions, and I really enjoyed this.
I'd like to thank Meredith Markworth-Pollack for this talk about costume design, working on different time periods and sustainability. If you like Profession Costumière, don't forget to give it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and to write a comment. You can also join Profession Costumière on Instagram @Profession Costumière to see the costumes discussed during the interviews. Bye!